All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of Chinese electric vehicles. We're talking EVs,
I
baby.
got it. EVs are the name of the game today.
And you sent me some seriously fascinating stuff to dig into for this deep dive. A YouTube video breaking down the latest EV sales in China, plus some audio commentary from a financial analyst.
Excellent
Yeah,
choices.
and what's really intriguing is that we've got these kind of contrasting
Well,
viewpoints.
how so?
Well, on one hand, you see this incredible surge in EV sales. China's basically an EV powerhouse right now. But then on the other hand, you've got some analysts whispering about a potential market
Oh,
crash.
yeah, some serious whispers going around.
So our mission today is to figure out, once and for all, is China's EV boom the real deal? Or are we, like, on the edge of a massive industry wipeout?
The million-dollar question, right? Well, the first thing that kind of jumps out from the analyst's commentary is just the sheer number of EV brands in China.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot, right?
It's crazy. He said there are like 90 different brands all fighting for a piece of the market. 90!
Whoa, 90. That's wild. That's like, imagine walking into a car dealership and there are 90 different brands to choose from.
Exactly. It's overwhelming and, to be honest, totally unsustainable. This level of market saturation creates some serious problems, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, for consumers, it's got to be information overload. And for the companies themselves, the competition must be cutthroat.
It is. It leads to these like crazy price wars where companies are slashing prices just to stay afloat. And ultimately, someone's got to lose. We're already starting to see it happen, too.
You're talking about Yanheng, right? That company the analyst mentioned.
Yep, Yanheng. They're a prime example of what can go wrong in this kind of overcrowded market. They're dealing with unpaid staff, employee walkouts, and basically begging the government for a bailout.
Wow, sounds like they're barely hanging on.
Is it?
It reminds me of a friend of mine who's always chasing the next Tesla. He's constantly pouring money into these tiny EV startups, convinced he's going to strike gold.
Yeah, I know the type. And look, I get the appeal. Everyone wants to discover the next big thing, right? But the reality is most of these startups are going to crash and burn. The analyst actually compared it to Lucid Motors in the US,
Oh,
remember
yeah.
that?
Lucid, they started out with so much hype, but they've hit some serious roadblocks.
Exactly. And it just goes to show that betting on the underdog in this kind of market is incredibly risky.
Especially when even the giants can fall.
Hmm.
The analyst brought up the Evergrande bankruptcy, which is still blowing my mind. I mean, Evergrande was this massive Chinese conglomerate, practically untouchable.
It's crazy, right? And Evergrande's collapse actually highlights another important point, the risks of government intervention. I mean, on one hand, government subsidies can help boost an industry in its early stages. But on the other hand,
It can create this artificial bubble that's bound to burst eventually.
exactly. So the question is, are we seeing something similar happening in the Chinese EV market? Are all these government incentives creating a false sense of security?
It's definitely something to think about. And that brings us to another big player we need to talk about, BYD.
Oh yeah, BYD, they're kind of the elephant in the room, aren't they?
Totally. Their sales numbers are through the roof. But is that all organic? Or are they benefiting from all these struggling startups and government handouts?
That's the million-dollar question. It's like a game of musical chairs. And as all these smaller players drop out, BYD is perfectly positioned to scoop up all that leftover market share.
That's a great analogy. So are we saying BYD is basically unstoppable at this point?
Well, even BYD has its weaknesses. The analyst pointed out that they're not immune to challenges. This market is constantly changing, and staying on top requires constant innovation.
Right. It's not enough to just ride the wave. You got to be ahead of it.
Exactly. So let's dig into BYD's strategies a bit more. What are they doing differently? What kind of tech advancements are driving their success?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. I know they're big on battery technology, right?
They are. They developed this thing called the Blade battery, which they claim is safer and more energy dense than traditional lithium-ion batteries.
So they're not just building EVs, they're literally pushing the boundaries of battery technology too. That's smart.
It is. They've got this vertical integration thing going on where they control a big chunk of their supply chain, from making the batteries to assembling the cars.
So that gives them an edge in terms of cost and efficiency, I'm guessing.
Big time. It's a smart strategy in a market as competitive as this one.
All right, so just to recap, we've got this crazy overcrowded market with tons of competition, some companies like Yanheng that are barely hanging on, a rising star in BYD that seems to be doing everything right, and then this big question mark hanging over everything about whether all this government support is creating a bubble that's about to burst. It's It's a lot to process.
It is. But by breaking it down like this, we can start to see the bigger picture, right? And maybe ask the right questions, like, will BYD continue to dominate? Or will some new challenger come out of nowhere and disrupt everything?
Or what happens when the government starts pulling back on those incentives? And ultimately, what does all this mean for the future of EVs, not just in China, but globally?
Those are the questions we got to be asking, and hopefully by the end of this deep dive, we'll have some answers. Or at least some more informed guesses.
Exactly. This is just the beginning of our journey, folks. Buckle up, because we're about to go even deeper. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks here. Those sales numbers we talked about, they're pretty mind-blowing, right? Over 1 million EVs sold in China in just 1 month.
It's impressive, no doubt about it. September 2024 was a big month for EVs in China. Over 1 million sold, including those plug-in hybrids.
Plug-in hybrids, those are the ones with both gas and electric, right?
That's right. Gives drivers a little more flexibility if they're not ready to go fully electric just yet.
Makes sense. But okay, back to those numbers. 1 million EVs in a month? That's got to mean the Chinese market is totally embracing the electric revolution.
It seems that way, right? But that financial analyst we keep mentioning, he made a really good point. He thinks those juicy sales figures are partly because of all the sweet incentives China is offering EV buyers.
Oh, you mean those perks like easier licensing and stuff?
Exactly. The government's made owning an EV super attractive. But, and here's the big question, what if they yank those incentives away?
Would those sales numbers take a nosedive?
That's what we need to figure out. Is this real organic demand, or is it just a sugar rush from all those government goodies?
Like, imagine you're used to getting your fancy latte half price every day during happy hour, then suddenly, no more happy hour. Would you still shell out full price? Or would you go back to plain old coffee?
I see your point. Are Chinese consumers truly hooked on EVs, or are they just loving the deal? Because if those sales plummet when the incentives disappear.
It's a sign that the market isn't as strong as it looks on the surface, right? Like it's being propped up artificially.
Exactly. And remember, China's the biggest car market in the world. If things go south there, it could have a domino effect on the global EV market.
Wow. I hadn't thought about it like that. So we're not just talking about China here. We're talking about the future of EVs everywhere.
Now let's loop back to those smaller EV companies struggling to keep their heads above water. Where do they fit into all of this?
Yeah, they're already facing an uphill battle, right? With all that competition and now this potential market shakeup.
It's a tough spot to be in. They just don't have the deep pockets or the brand recognition of a company like BYD.
So if the market shrinks or those incentives vanish, they're going to be the first ones to go under.
It's definitely a possibility. We might see mergers, acquisitions, or some companies just quietly fading away. The EV jungle is a tough place to survive, especially for the little guys.
It sounds like we're heading towards a future where the Chinese EV market is dominated by just a handful of major players, kind of like what we see in the regular car industry.
That's a likely scenario. But here's a curveball for you. What if this whole consolidation thing actually ends up being a good thing for the EV industry?
Fewer companies, and that's a good thing. How does that work?
Well, imagine if only the strongest, the most innovative companies survive this shakeout. The ones who've really refined their products, built solid supply chains, and have the cash to keep investing in R&D.
So instead of a bunch of companies just scrambling to stay afloat, we end up with a few powerhouses who are genuinely committed to pushing the EV revolution forward.
Exactly. It's like a crucible, you know? The intense competition forces everyone to step up their game.
I'm starting to get it. But wouldn't fewer companies mean fewer choices for consumers?
That's a fair point. But even with fewer players, the pressure to cater to different tastes and budgets would still be there. These companies would likely expand their model lineups to make sure they're covering all the bases.
So instead of like 90 companies each making one or two EV models, we might have 10 companies offering 8 or 9 different EVs covering the whole spectrum.
And with their larger scale and deeper pockets, they might even be able to offer those EVs at lower prices, which means electric cars become more accessible to more people.
Okay, so we've gone from a potential market crash to a scenario where the industry emerges stronger and EVs become even more affordable. It's a pretty amazing turnaround.
Right. This whole discussion just shows you how dynamic and complex this market is. It's full of surprises and twists and turns.
It's like, I don't know, a game of musical chairs where the music keeps changing speeds and someone keeps adding or taking away chairs.
That's a great analogy. It highlights how important it is to stay flexible and informed. The companies and even the consumers who can adapt to those changes are the ones who are going to come out on top.
Okay, so We've talked about those sky-high sales numbers, the risk of a market bubble, and the possibility of some serious consolidation in the Chinese EV market. Whew, it's a lot to take in.
It is. It's like a lot's happening, a lot of moving parts, and it's all changing so fast.
Exactly. It's like trying to hit a moving target, right?
Exactly. But I think what we can all agree on is that the Chinese EV market, it's anything but boring, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. So if we had to boil it all down, what's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the key thing to remember is that change is the only constant in this market. Whether we're talking about government policies or what consumers want, or even just the technology itself, it's all evolving at warp speed.
Right. You snooze, you lose, basically.
Exactly. And the companies that get that, the ones that can roll with the punches and adapt, they're the ones that are going to win this race.
That's like we're watching a high-stakes game of chess, right?
Yeah.
Where every move can change the whole board.
That's a perfect analogy. Because just like in chess, if you want to win in the Chinese ED market, you got to be thinking several steps ahead. You got to have a strategy.
All right, so let's shift gears for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're an investor, right? And you're looking at this market. Who are you putting your money on?
That's a tough one. I mean, you could play it safe and go with the established players like BYD. They've got a solid track record. They're clearly doing something right.
Yeah, but what about those exciting new startups that are pushing the boundaries? The ones that could be the next Tesla, the ones that are a little riskier but have huge potential.
Oh, that's tempting too, right? The high risk, high reward play.
Or maybe you're more interested in companies that are laser focused on a specific niche, like luxury EVs or super affordable city cars.
Or companies with global ambitions, the ones that are ready to take on the whole world.
Yeah, so many possibilities. That's what makes this market so fascinating. It's a space where innovation is king, the competition is fierce, and the stakes are, well, pretty massive.
Definitely.
So to all our listeners out there, as you keep following this crazy EV race, remember to stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions about where this industry is headed.
Because in this world, the only thing we know for sure is that things are going to keep changing, and the ones who can keep up, those are the ones who will succeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the Chinese EV market. It's been a blast.
Yeah.